My name's Duane Jones. As always, I'm a mess, so forgive me. So I am. I do a lot of things. I have to correct you though. I don't host Changing the Narrative anymore. I am one of the founders, but stepped away from that gig, as we'll get into a little bit later, I guess, sort of related to this. So my talk today is going to be about this daddy-daughter collaboration that I had with my daughter this summer, where we painted a mural for Halifax Mural Fest. And I was interested in documenting this process in like an Instagram post, but I was like, it just got so complicated. And I was like, I want to say this, I want to say that. So then this opportunity came up, so thank you for inviting me. And I was like, this would be a good format for that. So I can get into like some of the like practical stuff about it, but also just the kind of fun, art, weird, random things about it too. So a little bit about me is, what if having too many jobs as a person? That's me. So I identify as an artist first and foremost. I went to NSCAD. I took communication design there, which is a fancy way of saying graphic design. I still do that on a freelance basis through my business, Collaborators Communications. I have an online retailer called Art Pays Me, and I also host a podcast where I talk to creatives from the range of creative disciplines, not just artists. This is Dory Tunstall, and my man there, who's a fantastic architect. So I love to just get inspired by people from different perspectives and getting like their ideas and stealing things from them if I can. This is an example of some of the branding that I do, some packaging for family business actually. Some menstrual cup products that's been keeping me busy for the last couple of days. And this is some stuff from my fashion line. And in another world, I'm also an information manager. So I kind of dabble, which I still consider kind of design, because like I do a lot of spreadsheets, and I work at the Faculty of Medicine at Dal, where I'm working on the web currently, but I'm trying to bring design, aesthetics, organization of data, content, making context out of all of those things, bringing it together in one. And something I learned was like that as an artist, you can bring that stuff together. And this project here, Tyranny, this was a fun one. This was something I did through Art Gallery Nova Scotia, where they brought me in to design an exhibition for them. One of the things Hushang actually said, interesting, is how did I find out about the Halifax Mural Fest? So it was by chance. In 2018, I was starting to really explore my creativity and do a lot of different things. And I participated in this group show called Two Creams, Two Sugar, and they had a show at the Daily Grind, and I met a Prince Fuse, and a lot of the art you probably see around the city has been done by this person, and his company is one of the organizers of Halifax Mural Fest. So, just out of the blue, like him and I kind of stayed in contact since that group show and had a mutual respect. And he just reached out to me and said, hey man, you want to do a mural? And I had never done a mural before ever, but I was like, it sounds fun. I keep saying I want to do more art. I want to do more creative things. So I took it on, and that was in 2022. So this is kind of an example of some of the stuff. So a lot of you have probably seen these around the city and wonder what that's all about. These are a bunch of the amazing pieces. So this is what I did. So I started off tiny, just a little electrical box. And I'm the type that I live on the internet. I'm alone a lot. And I don't like having clients over my back saying this and that. But like when you're painting on the street, you literally have people just like, you're entertainment for people. And I kind of enjoyed it. It was fun to give people a window into like the creative process and them kind of seeing how I work. And it's almost like if you play sports, you kind of have like a cheering section where people are just like, hey man, that looks great. People just walk by, like they're having a coffee and they're just encouraging. Like there's nobody that's just like mean to you. Like it actually feels good and it's fun. And like the other thing is I like a little bit of subversive stuff in my work. So a lot of people were looking at this and they just liked the colors, they thought it was cool. But for me, it was like trying to say something about like Pan-Africanism and being more visible in the city, in Halifax particularly. So those are kind of like things I kind of like to sprinkle into my work. So what if I have no idea what I'm doing, which most of us don't. The thing is that I find a lot of people who talk to me and come to me for help with, you know, trying to figure out what it is they want to do as a creative entrepreneur or whatever it is. They keep saying, oh, I'm an artist or I'm creative, I don't know what to do. Thing is the way I try to get back to it is like, when I got asked to do the mural festival again this year, it's like, oh man, what am I gonna paint? I don't know what to do, but it's like, what stories do you tell? What stories are you interested in telling? So for me, it was, at that time in 2022, I was like trying to explore that Pan-African ideal. So that was my opportunity. And this year, last year, it was like, oh man, I really don't know, because I was in such a dark place. Like everything I did was like black, abstract. I'm like, no one wants to see a big black, like rough thing of nothing that they can't determine what it is on a wall in the city. So what I did was I started to ask these different questions. You know, what if a mural is a place to tell the stories that I have? What story am I trying to tell? What if there's an issue with the location, which is a technical thing that I figured out with the cable boxes, like we're painting on metal. So that's something I hadn't done before. What type of paint? I learned, a lot of the artists told me house paint works well. You don't need to like spend a crazy amount of money on like fancy paint to get house paint. So things like that are things you kind of have to figure out. What if you get the wrong supplies? You know, different kinds of brushes. I learned about oil paint markers, which I love now. Like I use them in my canvas pieces now too. And you know, what if the surface is too large? Like, what are you gonna do? How do you solve that problem? Do you need rollers? Do you need scaffolding? Is that provided? Do you have to prime the walls? All these things. So a lot of this stuff the Mural Festival provides for you. So you don't have to, but it's good. So one of the things that I realized last year is there has been like a pattern of me just incorporating these like panthers into things that I was doing. This little sketch I did, then I had a painting, then I turned that painting into a shirt, and that was, and then I actually started a basketball team and called them the Black Panthers. So it was like, what am I doing? There's something there. So it's like something about that, again, going back to that Pan-African stuff, but more in a subtle way, because I just like the animal is kind of cool at the same time. So I've always been that type of person that like ran away from repeating the same ideas. And now I'm starting to realize that like, that's what makes you unique. That's what makes your style. So like in here, for instance, like there's a little shout out to Virgil Abloh, who was like a big inspiration to me just with his off-white, how he used a lot of those horizontal patterns. Most people wouldn't even pick that up, but for me, it's like, I just want to keep digging back to these things that have meaning for me and can still just be there. So then another side of it is like, so I have a kid. I'm like, what if my kid's more talented than me? This is someone for work. I can't take credit for teaching her how to do this stuff. I wish I could, but she just like goes on her own. She started drawing stuff on her like a little tiny iPod in like Word. And I was like, this is amazing. Like, what are you doing? And I was like, you should try Procreate. She's like, I don't want to use that. I don't want to use that. And I just got it for her one day, got her an iPad, and then she just figured it out. And next thing you know, she's doing this. She's figured out how to animate these things. She can do stuff in real life. She can do stuff all over the place. And again, like with her, a consistent thing that I see, she's always loved animals. And these animal type figures keep coming out. I mean, she even like created, everyone know what furries are? I know cringe, right? She's a furry. So she made this like crazy like 3D furry costume. Again, self-taught, just taught herself how to make it. Ridiculous. And so all these like kind of humanoid sort of animal things keep showing up in her work. And then she had this flag, I didn't know what it was. And then she had it in her room. And then I was like, what is that? And then she said, well, it's a lesbian flag. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So it's like stuff like that kind of started showing up in her work. So then I was like, boom, what if I show Ava my painting of the panther and say, can you reinterpret it in your style? And like, you know, typical Ava, I just gave it to her. Within an hour, she came back and had like 4 different versions of this character. And I was like, all right, I actually like that. And I was like, it kind of has a more friendly, less combative style than what I would want to do, but like still kind of has the same sort of messaging and subversiveness that I like to go for. So last year was a doozy. We were on vacation for a wedding last year, right before the mural festival. I'm an immigrant from Bermuda, and my permanent resident card expired, and I was in St. Kitts, basically stuck. And then I had to go to the States. They wouldn't let me in the country unless I drove across the border. So we were dealing with all of this mess like right before the festival. I was like a day or two late when everyone else had started. Drove across the border, banged it out, made it through, so Ava and I were able to kind of scout things out and see what happens. So like just the nuts and bolts, practical stuff about it is like we figured out which wall we're gonna use, and we like measured the space. I'm pretty like particular in my design background. Like I had to know everything to the inch of what we're working with and what we're not working with. And also there was an aspect too of like we had to get the design approved by the festival people because they're working in cohort with the city. So if I put, you know, after Premier or something like that on a wall, they're not gonna approve that. So there was a little bit of that kind of stuff going on too. And then surprisingly things went pretty well. Like my mock-up was pretty accurate, and then I was able to I created this grid based on the actual like wall patterns and like mocked this all up in Photoshop. And I was basically like, I'm just gonna do a paint by numbers so that Ava and I can do together. And I just drew these little dots all over the place on the actual wall. And then we just like kind of fill it in. I was like, easy, right? And then like something changed. The next day we came there, this thing was now on my wall that wasn't there before, and this dude was working. It was also raining, so it was like, well, this is it, right? Like everyone who's been in a creative project, it's like there's always that thing that just happens. Boom! It's just like you feel like I don't know what I'm doing. Oh yeah, great. Now I got it figured out. Something goes wrong, so you have to like kind of flip. You revolve. So then audio wasn't great, but the guy that was working, he was just like fascinated by what I was doing. So he was like, oh, you're spray painting in the rain. Like, what is that? What if it doesn't work or whatever? I'm like, he just said, I don't use spray paint. I don't know. I'll figure it out. We'll see, right? So this is kind of the mentality that I start to go into when I'm creating is like what if I ever want to find out what happens? Like, just have a little bit of fun and play and let things land where they land, sort of thing. So even with all of my particularness with the grids and everything, I was drawing this thing. It's like massive, right? So I stepped back and I'm like, everything is way out of proportion to what I thought it was. Like the nose is like way taller than I thought it was gonna be. I'm like, what's going on? I thought I was following everything precisely. So like just one of the other random weird things that kind of happen when you're doing this stuff. But then Ava and I kept trucking along and we just kept evolving it and changing it and tweaking it. And like all of those little happy accidents or unhappy, whatever you want to call them, they kind of just work themselves out. Like Ava doing her, like the funny classic thing that artists do where you just kind of stand there and stare at the piece before you work. Yeah, so this, I was starting to get to the end right there. I was just saying it's not angry enough because it started to look like I started to want to do my thing. It's too happy, it looks too Ava. So I wanted to rough the edges up a little bit. So then I started like using my hands and doing whatever I could to just kind of loosen the thing up and get it to more where it felt like it was more my thing. And then it was done. So this is the final piece. It's like not my typical thing, and it's not necessarily Ava's typical thing, but it's kind of both of our things. So the lesbian flag was like more obvious initially, but then I decided to just like make it more abstract to fit more my aesthetic. So again, most people don't even know what's back there, but that's what it is. And we called it, well, Unapologetic is what I called that original painting. So this one is Unapologetic Pride. And again, bringing those two worlds of my daughter and I together. And there's some details of it. And there's Ava embarrassed to take a picture with me. And that's it, thank you.